I'm Corvin Hase, Lord Hayes. This is the story of Uncle Blovinius and the dinner that had no food. Long ago, or perhaps just recently, in a place that resists clocks, Uncle Blovinius was invited to a grand dinner hosted by the Council of Reasonable Doubt, a secretive group of magicians, former judges, and one particularly nervous goose. The invitation arrived on a scroll made of whispering leaves that crumpled into the scent of thyme, the plant, as he read it. This was how he knew it was legitimate. Ilariel, his divine niece, warned him gently. Uncle, they're going to ask you questions that don't have answers, and they'll feed you illusions made of hunger itself. Uncle Blovinius winked, or rather, his left eyebrow did the full work of the wink, while his eye remained nobly still, as if guarding some internal treaty. And he was. Perfect, he muttered. I've been famished for the nothings of the world. The hall was carved from patience and lit by chandeliers that changed their color based on your unspoken feelings. Blovinius's chandelier glowed as a steady molasses gold, a color reserved for those who had survived being misunderstood and come out charming the other side. The table stretched across the dimension, literally. Time zones flickered across the cutlery. A fork near his elbow belonged to a Tuesday. Naughty, naughty. The council sat, 12 in number, each cloaked in half-remembered professions and impossible hats. They welcomed him with polite dread. And then, nothing was served. A grand procession of platters arrived, each bearing nothing but richly steaming piles of remembered meals, aromas of regrets, salted just right, soups of unspoken possibilities. Oh my. One platter held a roasted shadow of what might have been a swan. Uncle Blovinius tucked in with gusto. He chewed on silence like it was brisket. He sipped despair like a fine consommé and smacked his lips. Harrow. He used longing as a toothpick and smiled afterward with kaleidoscope teeth. A woman with eyebrows made of smoke leaned toward him and asked, "Tell us, Uncle, what sustains you, truly?" He dabbed his lips with a napkin that tried to crawl away. He looked at the goose. Then gently but firmly he said, "I eat from what I've forgiven. That's the only food I trust. And let me tell you, I've had feasts." The room grew heavy, dense with an unseen thing that some might call truth, others might call honey. Honey? A silence bloomed. Then the nervous goose honked The nervous goose honked once, loud and, excuse me, loud and holy. The chandelier above Uncle Blovinius flared to indigo, the color of sovereign contradiction, and everyone stood without knowing why. He left before dessert, though he carried a pocketful of imaginary cake for Velisandra, Ilariel's storm-born love, who had a taste for metaphors. Yes. Outside the hall, beneath the skies woven from question marks and breeze, Uncle Blovinius walked home, not on a road, but along a sentence someone had once tried to finish. He didn't look back. He rarely needed to. Wherever he walked, the road got better. As Uncle Blovinius walked along that sentence road, the punctuation shifted behind his boots. Periods turned to ellipses. Commas bowed and curled into small sleeping animals. And quotation marks floated upward like twin moons remembering how to dream. Shh, they're sleeping. His coat, patchwork, immortal, and slightly iridescent when viewed with an honest heart, fluttered behind him like a priest's blessing in a chapel made of wind. Kaze and the world around him began to stir. For you see, when Uncle Blovinius eats the illusions of others and digests them with love, the illusions lose their need to trick anyone else. Clouds that had once impersonated ceilings began to drift upward again, remembering their names. Trees that had pretended to be furniture remembered their wildness. And people, quiet souls in the nearby village, began to feel suddenly as though they could stand up from their low chairs and say exactly what they never had the courage to say. Not in anger, but in golden honesty. I wanted to sing, whispered a cobbler as he looked at his shoes. I loved someone once, said a stonecutter, as if the rock might remember her too. I never wanted to be afraid, sighed a baker, letting flour fall like snow from his hands. And somewhere far above, a star blinked once, twice, maybe even thrice, in the middle of the second blink. Of the eyes, I mean, and hummed a chord so rich it thickened the soul. By the time Uncle Blovinius reached the soft boundary of the hills, where land turned to question and birds began to speak in couplets, he stopped. He waited. Behind him, the nervous goose had followed all the way, silently. She was different now. Her eyes had stopped flickering with doubt, and now held that quiet clarity one finds in grandmothers, waterfalls, or very old bread. I think I understand, she said. Uncle Blovinius crouched, eye to eye with her. You don't have to. Just don't forget what it felt like to try. And with that, he took from his coat a small item, shaped like nothing, heavier than hope, and placed it gently at the goose's webbed feet. It was the check from the dinner bill, but it was paid in full, written in a currency only known to those who have learned to sit through hunger without becoming bitter. The ink shimmered. The signature read, "On behalf of all that was once impossible, Blovinius." Later, as moonlight poured itself thinly over the earth, like a hymn remembering its verses, Ilariel found him on the porch. He was sipping a tea that did not exist from a cup that sang softly when touched. She sat beside him, leaning into his shoulder. "Was it awful?" she asked. "Yes," he said, smiling. "And worth it?" It was exactly what it had to be. They sat like that, wrapped in the hush of an evening that had forgiven itself for becoming night. And far away, the council of reasonable doubt stared long into their own mirrors, and for the first time saw not riddles, but reflections. And so it was that Uncle Blovinius, half wrapped in starlight and half in the weightless hush of things unspoken, leaned back in his chair beneath the great listening sky. The wind, curious and kind, passing over him like an old friend remembering the shape of his soul. A cricket strummed a lullaby in a key of childhood. The porch creaked like a contented elder sighing in his sleep. And there, beside Ilariel, who dozed with her fingers still glowing faintly from some half-held dream, Uncle Blovinius closed his eyes and smiled. Not the smile of a clever man, nor a hero, nor even a teacher, but the smile of someone who has tasted the storm, dined on silence, walked every room of sorrow, and found within each one a lamp, and lit it, just so someone else wouldn't have to stumble there alone. The stars above leaned in quietly. One by one, they folded their distant flame into him. Not to take him, but to say, "We see you, lantern soul. We carry your echo in every shimmer." And below, in the little town where no one had quite gone to sleep, people stirred with a strange gladness they couldn't name. A child woke up laughing. An old man forgave himself. A widow opened the window and let the breeze braid her hair. Somewhere, The nervous goose flew, not away, but onward, carrying the tiniest pearl of certainty in her feathered breast. That grace is not always loud, that love doesn't always knock, and that sometimes, when the world doesn't know how to heal, a Blovinius shows up and eats the pain. Not to vanish it, but to companion it, to hold it still until it sighs and softens and finally turns back into light. And you? If you ever find yourself at the edge of things, hungry, half lost, and doubting your glow, listen for the quiet hum of boots on sentence roads, and remember, there is someone who already cleared a little channel for you. There is someone who already lit the lamp in your room. And his name is Uncle Blovinius. And he loves you without needing to understand you. Forever and just now.